Hi friends, welcome to the Gardener's Workshop Live, our Friday at 6 get together. My name is Lisa Mason Ziegler of the Gardener's Workshop, and I am really happy that you've stopped in here. So today's show, we are, yes, believe it or not, still starting sunflowers. And, I'll talk a little bit like I did last week about, sunflowers in fall, y'all, are like peanut butter and jelly, right? We're also going to talk a little bit about the reality of cover crops. I'm getting lots of questions. People are thinking about doing cover crops. And there's some things that you want to, I'm just looking for my pen, things that you want to consider where and what you're planting. Sorry, y'all, I'm writing that down. Before you do it, because it can really affect your spring planting deal. And we're going to talk about that. And then guess what, y'all? My cool flower seeds, I took them out of the freezer, as I think I mentioned last Friday I was going to be doing, to inventory everything and really make my plan, because you know that next year is really special for us. This is our farewell season of selling cut flowers. Not growing, we're still doing everything, we just are no longer obligated to selling our flowers. And so that has opened a door of amazing opportunity here on our farm. So we're going to talk about that. So thanks everybody for joining. And we've had a lot of new people lately, so I thought I would just say a little bit about who are we, right? So I am a commercial cut flower farmer located in southeastern Virginia, and my business kind of spiraled out of control when it started like 23 years ago, and grew into so much more than a flower farm. And what it has kind of gone full circle into now is we are basically a learning center and an online garden shop. On the online garden shop, we just sell the same tools, seeds, supplies, my books, and all of our online courses. My online courses and those online courses that we produce for other flower farmer and flower-based business entrepreneurs. And, it's just really it's just nowhere where I thought it was going to be when I started all this so many years ago. So I am going to, and Tucker is right under my table, and so I'm afraid he's going to knock the tripod down, buddy. Anyway, sorry friends. So I want to talk for just a minute before we dive into starting our seeds, and I have last week's trays to show y'all. They're so beautiful. They're about this tall. And I just love seedlings, y'all. That's what gets me into so much trouble. I just start too many seeds. Anyway, we're going to look at those. But I just posted in my stories and Instagram, and I think it's going to also post in my Facebook stories. And if it doesn't, I'll try to remember to post it there. That, friends, I'm singing the same old song. There is an amazingly horrible cut flower shortage still going on. We talked about this a lot in the spring, and we talked about it then because our class or our course with Ellen Frost of Growing Your Business, Sourcing Local Flowers. It's Florist School online. And we talked about it to help so many desperate florists and designers that couldn't get what they needed. And I'm only reminded of this because one of the wholesalers, who's a big wholesaler that I follow, just posted that the flower shortage is exceeding the toilet paper shortage we had last year in the pandemic. That is a statement, y'all. You know how crazy and ridiculous that was. And I am just saying that we have to seize the moment. And I'm just going to tell y'all like it is. If you are a new grower under 5 years and you want to become a professional cut flower grower, there is opportunity for you. I highly recommend all 4 of our classes, our courses that enroll this October and November. Then they start running in November and January. To become a professional, to learn how to be profitable as quick as possible. Y'all, there is opportunity out there. We're not going to be growing the roses that they are so desperate for right now, but we can train our florists, as I did. I've lived it. We can grow beautiful, gorgeous stuff. And Tucker, buddy, come on. We can grow. Go on, buddy. All right. He's going to circle around and come right back. We can fill their needs, and we know that. All you have to do, and if anybody has that question of how much gorgeous stuff could a local grower grow, I want you to follow 3 people. First and foremost, Love and Fresh Flowers, which is Jenny Love. She's in Philly. She's a farmer florist. She only uses what she grows. If you look at the absolute drop-dead gorgeous flowers that she uses, you'll see. Then there's Sunny Meadow Flower Farm. That's Steve and Gretel. They're also growing an amazing opportunity of crops. And then we actually have an Instagram page that you can follow. It's Florist Buying Local Flowers, and you can be a stalker. That's not a place for farmers to ask questions because we're trying to attract florists to it, but you can see Ellen's showing it. So y'all, there's opportunity, and I just wanted to share that. And people are just not sure or concerned, and once you get in, one of the things that I think is so significant about our courses, and by the way, if you are one of our students of any of our courses, please comment with the little sunflower emoji on here, and then other people will know you're one of our students, and you guys can connect together. So we'd love for you to do that, to use the little sunflower emoji to comment and just say I'm here. The thing that is so significant about our courses is that you maintain connection with the students, your students in your class, as well as past students, as well as your instructor, even after school is over. So that's just a really unique opportunity, and we just we now have a student ambassador, our good friend Jessica Graven, who you'll see on here often, is one of our team members, and she is our student ambassador. Her job is to be sure that student experience is just held at a great level. So Tucker is now licking my arm. Oh boy. So let's get down to some business here, right? So we're starting sun still, but first I'm going to just pick this up and I want to show you so I do not forget. Look at our sunflowers from last week. Aren't they beautiful? Wait a minute, I'm gonna have to take you off there. If I tilt the phone the wrong way, Facebook will warn me. Let me just turn this around. Look at that. How beautiful are they? So I just put them out. So these are the ones that we started last week on the 27th. And they were on the heat mat for about, probably 3 or 4 days. And then I moved them under the grow lights in there because there's nothing in our room, right? We haven't started any cool flowers yet. And I just moved them out today, and they were so pretty I thought I would for sure wanted to show you guys. So they're really, really beautiful. So starting sunflowers, this week not so much. Oh, turned you the wrong way, y'all. This week's sunflowers are not very risky at this point. You know, where our first typical frost date is mid-November. So we're not really worried about it. But I will tell you that we are going for a couple of more weeks after mid-September, because if we can protect our sunflowers, if we were to get a hard freeze, a simple row cover or just giving them a little bit of protection. Sunflowers are much more hardy than most people give them credit to, because y'all, these last weeks of flowers is your profit. That is really, everybody else has been paid. The suppliers, the employees if you have them, the taxes, everything, your insurance bill for liability, all of that mess has been paid for. But now, the way I look at it, it's like every single cent that I can bring in now is pretty much in my pocket. That's the way it kind of works. So we love to extend our season with sunflowers because, you know, as I love to say, peanut butter and jelly, fall and sunflowers. So we're going to do our weekly sunflowers. And so those of you that may not have been here before, we start sunflowers every week. And we start about 4 to 5 weeks before our last spring frost. And we start them in these 128 plug trays, which you can find everything I'm talking about you can find on our website, thegardenersworkshop.com. We start them in here. This soil that we're starting them in is not anything special. It is not soil blocking mix. That is much too precious to use in here, and you don't need to. This is 50% of any potting soil that you can find or get, with 50% finished compost, and we buy it bagged and just have it out there on the carport. And when Bobo fills the tub, she fills 1/2 with compost, 1/2 with soil, potting soil, and then she just mixes them up, and then here you go. This is what I've got. And this is blue painter's tape. We love using this to mark our trays, and we use the weather-resistant garden marker. You'll find this on our website. Love these things. They write on plastic, wood, and tape and last outside in the weather for a good long time, y'all. So I've gone ahead and I've already written our trays, so written our tape. So, you know, normally back in our high production years, we were starting, 1,200 sunflowers a week for 26 weeks and sold every stinking one of them. Between using it in our mixed bouquets, selling to commercial customers, they were just always gone. So now that we are just selling to our members only market and our subscription services, we're only starting all season. We started 3 trays a week, which is about 400 sunflowers a week. Well, as we're moving into fall, we started starting 4 sets of trays because, y'all, you cannot have enough. For one thing, sunflowers naturally get smaller in the fall. Even the day length neutral, we grow pro cuts. We love them because they're quick to bloom, 55 to 60 days from seed to bloom. They have 12 different colors. And the secret is you have to grow one consistent color each week so your timing is always perfect. If you start them every week, you should have them, once they start blooming, you should have them to cut every week. And so even within the Pro Cut family, like we're going to start, I think, gold, bouquet mix, and I forget what the other one is. White mix. They'll still bloom in approximately 55 to 60 days, but some of them will be 55, some of the colors, and some will be 60. So there is a small window, but not much. But that's why we like to start one group every single week, and that is our special custom mix that we make is the bouquet mix. That has 4 of the orange varieties of Pro Cuts, and it's just the best. That's our go-to every week. The other trays, we vary. So the other sunflower that we grow is called Sunfill. It is not a Pro Cut, but it's still a 55 to 60 day. And we grow it for filler. And you have to go to the website and look at it. You'll find them, and you can go to the store. We have great images on our store of all the different Pro Cuts. And you grow it not for when it opens and has these funky looking petals. It's before that. It's got this huge head with all these sepals. That's the folds of green. And that will become amazing filler for you to use. All right, so this is Sunfill. So let's get these out of here. So we grow Sunfill. There's Sunfill green and Sunfill purple. Even though you would think purple is just a purple dark center, that would be really useful at this time of the year. But let me tell you what I want to caution you about fall. The fall colors in a lot of the flowers that we grow have these beautiful, rich, deep jewel colors. And what can happen if you grow too many of them is that your bouquets and your offering can quickly become too dark. And let me just tell you about what doesn't sell, especially at a farmer's market, are dark bouquets. It's really nice maybe to have one dark chocolate. It's actually the red Pro Cut that looks chocolate in the middle of a bouquet that's surrounded in orange and yellow, you know, but to have a whole bouquet of that, I can tell you from experience, they are so gorgeous, you just can't believe that they're not going to sell, and they don't. And same thing in the supermarket. So I just want to caution you about that. So the Sunfill, even though I do grow a little bit of the purple, which is what I'm growing this week because I don't have any green left right now, I typically prefer to grow the Sunfill green. The foliage is a lighter green. It's kind of the same color as Miss Burns Lemon Basil. You know how that's lighter green than all the other basils. And so I am just dropping a seed on the top of each cell, and we'll see what I'm going to do here in just a moment. And so we start the seeds every week indoors. This tray, after we do what we're doing here today, will go into my grow room. I'll put them on the floor because I have a drain in there. And I'll water them in really well. And then I'm going to put them onto a seedling heat mat. That's why we had such great germination on those trays we just looked at. Just like you should put any seeds on there, right? And then once about 50 to 75% of them have started to show sprouting, you don't have to wait until they get like what you're looking at. As soon as you see it cracking and that green coming out, that's considered sprouting. Then we moved them over to grow lights. And I will tell you, in the heat of summer, we don't do it this way. We do it a little bit differently. That room stays really hot, so we don't have to use a heat mat. And as soon as they sprout, we move them outdoors onto the porch, where they're in full blasting sun 24/7 until they get planted. So we're going to take them into the grow room, water them in, put them on the seedling heat mat, and then we are going to move them outside, and they're going to sit on the porch until they're 2 to 3 weeks old. How we know when they're old enough to plant is when we pull on the stem and the whole cell of soil comes with it. And you don't feel like you're ripping the stem from the roots, right? And if you're having trouble getting good root growth, that's usually a heat problem. That means you're either too much heat, but most often not enough heat. You got to put them on heat, y'all. I mean, sunflowers, y'all, I've got the itches really bad. I'm so sorry. The heat is what makes them pop quickly. So I am pushing the seeds about halfway into the cell, and sunflower seeds germinate best after, with them being covered with no light. They germinate best in darkness. So pushing them down in is going to provide that. But if you were to stop and look down into the cell right now, you would look in and say, oh my gosh, I can still see the seeds. I better get some more soil and put them on. You do not need, oh, I see that now. Wonder what happened. Huh. Wonder what the deal is here, y'all. Hopefully that's better. If you look down in there, the seed is still visible when you look in, but when you water, it washes all the soil that is on the walls of the cell, and so that does it fine. So I'm saying that to you because I used to get more soil. It's a wasted step. You know, that is some of the things that we talk about a lot in all of our courses is the things you shouldn't be doing, as much as we talk about the things that, wait a minute, y'all. Tucker is really trying to help me every step of the way here. So I'm moving that tray to the bottom. Now let's get the next one. Our tape is, so I'm putting the tape with the date and the color on the end of the cell tray, because when you get this sunflower freight train going and you have a bunch of sunflower trays out there, and especially if you have help, it's real easy to not get the trays that go together, to plant them together. That's all part of this whole succession, being able to keep your beds moving. what did I use? Lemon. Oh, I'm starting lemon this week. I haven't started lemon in a while. That pale yellow, soft yellow, I guess, which is just another great fall color. So having your trays identified is just a really good practice to get into. We use the tape and that marker on our soil blocking trays also, and it just is so helpful to everybody, especially so funny when you go from being a one-man show or a one-girl show. It's amazing how much stuff we store up here, but we got to start getting that out so that other people can help us. We were just talking about this last night. I was in a meeting and talking about how it's just so much easier to say, I'll just do it myself. It's easier than showing somebody else. It is just so important from the get-go to just have an operations manual. And it's just a notebook that I like using, a 3-ring binder, so you can move pages around and add pages in of how you do stuff. I mean, it's really simple. You know that when I really ramped up my farm a bazillion years ago, what allowed me to ramp up besides getting a tractor, I also hired my niece who had absolutely no gardening experience. She had a baby and wanted to stay home, and I hired her to come one day a week and do nothing but start seeds, because that was the job that just never got to. We never got to. And so, you know, if you want somebody to step in and help you, it is really helpful if they could just look at the steps, because you'd be amazed how much you forget to tell people how to do things. And like every week when I get off here, I thought, oh, wow, did I not say that again this year? I mean, I talk about this every week, right? So it's so easy to do that. Well, the same thing is true for employees. So, you know, that's my motto, is to really have things in a way that other people can help you do them easily. So these will be planted out into the garden when they're 2 to 3 weeks old, as soon as we can pull them. And we plant into beds that have been prepared with our organic chicken litter-based dry fertilizer according to directions. And the directions are right on the bag. You can find that, excuse me, over on our website. And more so almost than in summer, nutrition and water is really important to sunflowers. As the season starts to slow down, we kind of have to cuddle them a little bit, y'all, if you want to just think of it that way. You know, we basically ignore our sunflowers pretty much all year, but as we go into fall, Bobo and I just discussed it the other day and said, you know what, maybe we'll give them a little bit more TLC, since we're trying to squeeze more growing time out of them. Let's really just try to give them what they need to be there for us. Because my plan is that we're tacking on some additional subscription deliveries and members only market going on based on these sunflowers and our ability to have nice bunches of flowers to give to our customers, right? All right, so now we're doing what has become my all-time favorite, and y'all know I'm very fickle about this, right? Is the Pro Cut Gold Light. It has become actually everybody on this farm's favorite because it's more of a gold yellow. It's not really orange, but the center is chartreuse green, and it brightens up. You know, we were just talking about beware of dark flowers. So last week we started 2 trays of this. This week I'm only starting 1. You can never have enough. I mean, Bobo, Bobo is a big-time, very talented flower arranger. I mean, that's how I met her 100 years ago. She came to buy flowers from me. She's not really a big sunflower fan. You know, as we tell her, she's a fancy flower person. And she's learned all about how fancy our flowers are now. She just absolutely adores them. Anyway, she's not a big sunflower fan, but she loves this sunflower. And in fact, when you grow them small, as these will turn out to be, they don't even look like sunflowers. They kind of look like Gerber daisies. So these are super important. So we plant them out in the field into a bed that does not have the Bio 360 biodegradable film that we use 90% of the time. Because think about this. These sunflowers are already a third of the way through their life. You plant them when they're 20 days old and they're only going to 60, right? So we feel like it's a real waste of resources and just not necessary. So we prepare the bed with the organic dry fertilizer, and then Bobo uses the flower support netting, not to net them. We use it to spay. That's how we use some of that to plant with. It has, we actually put 5 rows now. I keep saying 4. We're actually planting 5 rows of sunflowers in a 30-inch wide bed, and they're 6 inches apart in the row. And that way you just get a lot of flowers from a small space, y'all. It is pretty amazing. We hand water them in. They do not have irrigation, but we get rain pretty regular here in southeastern Virginia. If you don't, then you need to put irrigation down or plan on watering them however you water. So we basically, up until Bobo and I had this discussion the other day that we might give them a little extra water since it's fall. She plants them, waters them in, and they're on their own. We do not use flower support netting in sunflowers. They would benefit from it, but we just plant way too many, way too often to be able to do that, right? So we do not flower support, because it's not just pounding the stakes in. When the bed's done, then it has to be taken out. And you just have to really weigh all that. So I am willing to sacrifice sunflowers going down in storms that we get on a regular basis here. I mean, we'll get a roaring 60-mile-an-hour wind on a Thursday afternoon at 5 o'clock that'll just roar through here for 10 minutes and take down stuff. So I'm just willing to risk that. All right, so this is the Pro Cut Gold. And y'all, I want to say that if you weren't sitting here if I wasn't talking to you guys, this is such a quick job. You just make it the first thing in the morning job to get it done. You can't sell sunflowers you haven't started. Dave Dowling and I talk about often, it's like the number one cash infusion. Once you have your business up and running and you've got customers, the number one thing you can do is have a sunflower succession. Y'all, as you gain knowledge and build all these things on, that's where you come up with volume. When we were selling full-fledged to florist, it's like I was a staple grower. I grew the flowers that florists used every day of their business. I didn't grow for special events. Blush was not in my lineup. And I grew what they can use every single day in their business. And when you start with that mentality, it's amazing how you can grow 20 very basic crops, say, and grow enough of them that you can produce a significant number of flowers and income. And sunflowers is at the basis of that. Sunflowers floated our bouquet business to the supermarkets. I mean, we made, in addition to farmers markets and 23 florists, we did 250 mixed bouquets a week. That's a lot of flowers, y'all. It's a lot of darn flowers. And sunflowers is what made it available, made it possible for us. So now I'm planting the bouquet mix, which is a Pro Cut custom mix that we make on the farm. We make in-house and mix those colors together, and it's all the oranges, and it's just the best. When I was in high production for all those years, planting 1,200 a week, we only grew Pro Cut orange, no other colors. You want to talk about confusing? If I had a bunch of different colors, let me tell you something. Once you get your business built up and you're taking care of customers and growing a bunch of stuff and doing all that process, you're not going to believe how easy it is to get totally overwhelmed with complications like growing 6 different colored sunflowers that you know you're supposed to be harvesting before they really open, so you can't really confirm what color they are, but you need to sell them to florists. Don't go there, y'all. We grew orange only and sold out every single week. What I learned is that they will buy what you have available. Once they know that you have great quality and they're gorgeous and it's what they need, you just don't have to do it. I mean, it's our own inner problem that we're constantly feeling like we need to grow something new, better, special, hot out of the box. All these people are looking for is good quality, consistent supply flowers to buy, locally to boot. And so that's in my course, which is the basics. It's all about growing those annual crops, to learn how to farm, to get customers, to learn how to sell, get your business set up. I spend a lot of time telling you what you shouldn't do too, y'all. I mean, that's one of the things that we really hear a lot about after the whole first week is nothing but about the business part. I hear from students, it's like, oh my gosh, after I did those exercises, I can't even believe how much I was doing that I shouldn't have been wasting my time on. There's too much important stuff to do, y'all. And I read about people doing it every day on social media. Oh my goodness, I just want to call them up and say, you really don't have to do that. It has nothing to do with the bottom line. Honestly. All right, we only have a few more here and we'll be done. And then I want to talk about cover crop. Because cover crop's a very complex subject. And people are eager to get started doing it, but it's not for everybody, and especially for not experienced or people that, if you have a lot of space, that's one thing, but if you're tight like me, then you might not want to do it. All right, I'm pushing the last down, and Tucker is right here looking up. He's already had supper. He's already had his walk. I don't know what his problem is, except that I'm focused on you and not him. So pushing them down. So I'm going to take these trays. We're not going to do this together. I'll take these trays into the grow room, water them, put them on the ceiling heat mat. Once 50 to 75% sprout, I'll move them to a grow light just to get them a little bit bigger before I put them out on the porch, because we're fighting varmints. Birds are just really hungry at this time of the year. So I get them a little bit bigger before I push them outside. So they are all done. Watch out, Tuck. All right. Ugh. All right. So I will answer your questions here in just a minute. I'll bring the phone over here. But I want to talk to you about 2 things. Cover cropping. So a lot of people are really, especially people that are just gung-ho and getting started in farming. And I want to say to you that back when I first started, I didn't cover crop for many years. First off, I didn't know a lot about it. But because I didn't know a lot about it, all I did was add compost. I was putting like 2 to 3 inches of compost on every one of my beds at the rotation time. And that turned out to be the best thing that ever happened. If you need to build your soil and you have limited space available, which means that, you can't just be growing cover crop everywhere. You need to have space to actually grow, right? It's much quicker to build your soil adding compost and using dry organic fertilizer in the beginning. I'm not saying that you won't ultimately cover crop, but if you are just getting started, the timing and the incorporation of cover cropping is not simple. It is not for everybody. I didn't do it for when we were in high production, I didn't give 1 square inch to cover cropping. I mean, maybe over winter for some parts of my farm, but I didn't do it we would put compost in and fertilizer, and we just kept on moving. The time will come. Now I'm in that time of life that we are cover cropping a lot more because it's not quite, especially if you don't have equipment. So what I wanted to share is an experience that I just had, that I was kind of surprised over. And I don't know exactly why it happened, and I'm not even giving it a second thought because I got too many other things to do. But I grew a field of buckwheat, 100 foot long, probably about 25 feet wide, and I needed to end it. You know, it was in bloom, and so we decided that I didn't want to mow it because I was afraid our turtles were in there. And so I said, all right, let's pull the silage tarp over it, and we just basically laid the silage tarp on top for 100 by 20 feet, y'all. And so we knew that within just a couple of days of heat, it would kind of just kill back that buckwheat. And then we could, everybody could get out of there that needed to get out, and we could just put the weights on it and go about our business. Well, I had that silage tarp down for 2 months or more, and I pulled the silage tarp off yesterday. And I was really surprised at how much buckwheat was still there. I mean, we've had 100-degree days. It has got a black silage tarp on top of it. And because I didn't mow it, I didn't flail mow it or bush hog it or anything, that meant it was whole pieces. And I'm here to tell you that it does not break down. So if we had mowed that well before we put the silage tarp on, I'm sure that we'd had a different instance. But I'm just reading about a lot of people that are talking about wanting to do cover crop. So here's the things that you need to remember. It never breaks down quite as quickly as you hope it will if you're squeezing space. Meaning if you're like pushing the envelope and planting everything, you really need to probably hold back on cover cropping. Maybe not as much as you really want to. And the other thing to think about this time of the year is, what are you planting in very early spring, which obviously, those beds should really be prepared in the fall, right, for the other set of cool flowers. But even beyond that, your first planting of warm season tender annuals, for us, that happens mid to late April. If you plant a bunch of cover crop, especially some of the tough ones, crimson clover, which is a cool season, isn't as tough, but you can't get that cover crop incorporated and expect it to break down in cool temperatures to be ready to plant your first warm season. So you have to think ahead of all this stuff. My method of doing that is we don't plant cover crops typically where the warm season tender annuals are going the first rotation. We put down compost and we cover it with a silage tarp for the winter to keep weeds from growing. And, so it's deeper than what you think. And I just wanted to reach out and say to people, just be careful and, think about it long and hard. And that's where really reaching out and, I don't know what Tucker is afraid of over there. Hopefully it's not a snake. The cover cropping is really useful, but you have to really think about it before you actually do it. And that's why I only recommend buckwheat and crimson clover. Buckwheat's warm, crimson clover is cool. They're both easy to incorporate, quick to break down when you do it at the right time. Because I'm already getting questions from folks that have planted stuff that is ferocious. If you don't have a tractor to take it down, you'll never get it down. You'll never get it incorporated. So, sorry, y'all, I was trying to see what he's chasing. That's what I wanted to say about that. And then, guess what? So I've got piles. Can you see all my piles of cool flowers over here? I just took them out of the refrigerator or the freezer. And I did post at the head of this feed the link to Rhonda's article about storing seeds, the recommended way. It's a great little short read. And that's where mine have been, in the freezer with the desiccant. I just store all of my cool flowers in the freezer. That way, when we take them out, they think, oh, it's spring, it's time to sprout, right? None of them require cold treatment. Putting them in the freezer just helps them to have better germination, right? So I mentioned briefly at the beginning of this that this is a really special season for us, or a year. This is our farewell season of selling cut flowers. I'm still doing everything else, y'all. But we are no longer being obligated to 200 members to produce flowers for them each week, we are able to really focus more on education and sharing and teaching other people. And what that means is that my garden will be planted in small sections of every cool flower. See, Tucker, really? So instead of me having to sit here and think, oh my gosh, we need to plant 2 beds. Sit down, Tucker. Lay down. Thank you. Good boy. Instead of me focusing on, all right, what are we going to have for foliage? All right, we need a bed of Bouquet, a bed of Bells of Ireland, 2 beds of snaps, blah, 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 blah. I don't have to think about all that stuff. I can plant 5 to 10 feet of every seed that we have, which is just going to give us a great opportunity for photography, for experience, for imagery, for that once the flowers bloom, when do they bloom, how much do they bloom. So it's going to really, really be exciting. So I was thrilled to take my seeds out because it's really different for me, y'all. There's a lot of stuff that I haven't grown for several years because it didn't fit into our plan of having mass production. So it'll be really fun to reacquaint us with some of those. And y'all keep your eyes out because I have a really special resource that I'm actually recording tomorrow that you're going to want. And it's only going to be available for a limited time because it's going to become a part of a course. So it will only be available for viewing for a short period of time. So keep your eyes peeled, gang. All right, so I'm going to bring the camera over here. Excuse me, sorry. Watch out, Tuck. So I can see your questions. And let's see what you guys got on here. I saw several questions fly by. All right, let's see what we have here. Hi, Lisa. Why did you decide to start growing and selling flowers? Well, that's a really great question, Lori. You know, several people have asked me to do like a podcast kind of, not a eulogy by any means, but kind of how it all evolved. But I will tell you that I was a novice gardener. My book, Vegetables Love Flowers and Cool Flowers, both pretty much tell different parts of the story. But the bottom line was I was a single girl paying for a house mortgage by herself. And so I was poor as a church mouse, had no money to do anything except pay my mortgage and maybe buy a few groceries. And I started dabbling in the yard, became a gardener, met Steve, and at the same time, soon after I met Steve, I stumbled upon the book, The Flower Farmer by Lynn Basinski, and I knew I had found my dream and my dream career. And Stevie, of course, came with this amazing piece of land and was a gardener, and his grandparents had been huge gardeners here before him, and I just hit the gate running and was a success. And then, you know, I was thinking about this earlier today because we're in the midst of another business dealing stuff, good stuff. And, you know, if you don't take risks, educated risks, you just never know. And I did take a lot of risks. That's what being an entrepreneur is. But Steve wholehearted supported me. And so I was willing to quit my job. I was the business manager of an animal hospital for almost 20 years, 15, 16, 17 years. And loved my job, loved the man I worked for, and still see him. He gets flowers from me every week, and he's become a big gardener, believe it or not. That's pretty funny. And anyway, you know, and then the rest is history. Can soil blocks be made ahead of time? I do not recommend it, Melissa. We actually, years ago, so many people didn't want to buy soil blockers, so we actually made blocks, dried them out, and then vacuum wrapped them in trays. And that part worked real well, but rehydrating them has a lot of issues, and it really depends on what soil you're using, so we do not recommend it at all. Tucker needs his own live show. Look at him. He's right. Oh, wait. Tucker. Now I turned you the wrong way. He is up on the table. Tuck, right here. Tuck. Now he's not even going to look. Rotten dog. He's trying to take the show over. So he's trying to get the rubber bands and the pins. This happens when he gets bored. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, Tucker needs a show. He needs an agent and he needs a trainer. How did you decide on the layout of your beds? I've had my beds in so many different directions, and what has turned out now that I'm where I am now, I realize I don't have any opinion of east, west, north, south, all that stuff, because all of my space is out in full blasting sun, and my beds are laid out in the most convenient way for me. The most efficient harvesting, where we can get our harvest trailers to them, where the irrigation can get to them. So they all run the same way. They are all the same length so that you can interchange row covers and netting, because those things can be used from year to year. And that's pretty much what did that. Hello, Australia. Always learn. Oh, thank you. Learn so much from you. Thank you, Katie. So Australia is going into spring. Yeah, Lori. Flowers and toilet paper. Who knew? I may have gone too crazy buying foliage and filler seeds. What percentage of our seeds would you suggest for focal flowers? I don't really do it that way. I mean, we just grow what's... My sister's theory, making bouquets, we first off do not make arrangements. We make mixed bunches, which people call bouquets, and we primarily sold to florists. So we grew the staple flowers that sold well to our florist, and then we also use those same types of flowers in our bouquets. So I never looked at it that way. We just grew a ton of everything, you know, tons of zinnias and sunflowers and lysianthus and all the cool flowers and all the other summer flowers. But I will say to you, you can never have enough filler and foliage. Never. Florists will buy, I mean, they buy 50% of what they buy is foliage and filler. Janet, how to harvest Salvia, Lycanthia, how long does it last? So you have to resist cutting it too soon. When it's the stinkiest is when we don't cut it. We let it age a little bit because it really gets more velvety and more beautiful and much firmer. And you know, this time of the year, especially I can remember when we were at Farmer's Market, we were always so desperate. It's so nice to have a new flower starting to bloom that people haven't seen before. And so you cut it too soon, it'll get limp on the end, and it's also pretty stinky at that stage. Salvia Lycanthia can smell nice if you have one stem, but when you have a whole bunch of it, it smells like cat pee. There's just no nice way to say that, y'all. People say it smells like a cat box, so beware of that. But the older it gets, the less fragrance it has, and it is just really great for bumblebees out in the garden. So I see lots of sunflowers. So if y'all didn't know it, the sunflowers are what people put on our lives when they're students. That lets you know that they've been in some of our online courses. Lisa, when are we starting your course? Okay, so my course begins, I can't look, it's the first Monday or Tuesday. I can't even remember, I'm sorry. We do a Q&A on one day and you get the class on the other day. I think Tuesday mornings, the first week of November is when it starts. And you should, the email, if you've already registered on the previous registration in June, you should have gotten an email that had that date, or you can just go to my page, go to the course page at thegardenersworkshop.com. And so the classes, the week's class will land in your inbox that Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. Then you keep it forever. You get a week to look at it. It's 3 to 4 hours of sessions. And then that Monday night before your next class lands in the next day, we have a live Q&A. It's really, it's just been getting, our Q&As are so much better now, y'all. We have 2 gals, Lane and Jessie, that work on them and organize the questions. We have a PowerPoint. It's just, you can go back and search it later. It's just so incredibly awesome. We are really trying to make our courses just not only better and better for the experience of the student, but what we hear from our students is going back to their course a year, 2 years, 3 years later as they grow in their business. And it's like, oh, I know we talked about that in school, but I didn't really pay attention because I wasn't there yet. Just more and more tools to be able to get to that information. Hi, pedal pusher. All right, Courtney. First off, do not be terrified. I'm terrified to plant fall flowers here in Georgia because we could have an 80-degree December. Is it better to transplant 6 to 8 weeks before last frost down here in the deep south? No, in fact, it's much worse. Or still plant 6 to 8 weeks before first frost? Yes. So this is what happens. Now Tucker's trying to eat my notes. Those that live in the deep south, planting 6 to 8 weeks before your last spring frost is like a last-ditch effort because we get so hot so fast, because I'm the same way here in Virginia. I mean, we go from winter to 85 to 90-degree days, almost like overnight. And so the very early spring stuff really is not the best for us. Your big opportunity is to fall plant everything. And you just need to figure out how you're going to do that and get them through winter. I mean, we get 80-degree days. So if you can get your transplants or your direct seeded stuff in the ground and get them up, get them established, when it starts to warm up, be sure you don't have row covers up and just do your best. But or get them in the ground on the proper timing and then do your best to keep them happy. Those will be so much more well established than plants planted 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost. I plant very little that second window. I have a couple of things. Sorry, y'all. I'm reading the comment, not focused, but I think that was from before. So I was just checking that. Stephanie, when you were selling to grocery stores, did you put your logo on the flowers? Also, how did you make sure they weren't selling them cheaper than you do? First off, and I will say this, and we talk about this in school, you sell your flowers to whoever for the price that you need to sell them for. It is basically none of your business what they sell it for. None whatsoever. That should not even concern you. You sell what you need to get for them. That's the way business works. What your customers sell it for, I mean, sure, if you were Nike, you could say, sorry, you can't sell those for under $100 a pair to even the playing field for all their customers. But that is not something that is in your business control at this point. And yes, when I was just trying to think I think I posted, if you go to either Instagram or my Facebook feed, a few days ago, I posted a picture of me holding a bunch of larkspur that was going to supermarkets. You can see a big yellow sticker. It did not have my website, and it had my business name and logo and said locally grown in Newport News, local flowers, no chemicals, something like that. Because, you can understand the supermarket's reluctance to have your flowers there and have the person connect with you. But the markets that I sold to, the supermarkets, did not mind that at all. Go on, Todd. So, that would be something, again, that's part of school is learning to be this professional person with confidence when you make contact with your customers, whether it's a florist or a supermarket. So, you don't go in there with, well, how do you want me to do it? You go in, it's like, this is our product. And you show how it comes packaged and go from there. And I think, and that's the standard for the industry. People have their farm name on there. They brand their flowers. It might not have your phone number and your website, but we know that people can find you from having your farm name, right? But it doesn't matter what people sell them for. You need to sell your flowers for what you can get for them. And that's the way it kind of works out. Hi, Lisa. I grow in Utah. After I planted my fall transplants, what then? We rarely get fall rain, so I can't rely on that for watering. How often do I water the transplants, and at what point do I stop? Do I fertilize? If so, how often? So that's a good question, Krista. So you want to get your plants well established with water. You know, so if you can't rely on rain, which a lot of people can't, you need to water them. What I would caution you against is if you have laid T-tape, which is the type of irrigation that we use, we don't want to run water through that tape before winter, because not only for freezing, but rodents tend to chew on it. So we do a lot of hand watering if that's needed, and just depends on how big you are. If you do have a really big space, I mean like an acre or more of cool flowers, then you're obviously going to have to irrigate, and then you need to take steps to protect your irrigation. So once the temperatures drop down below 30, we stop watering. So two things happen. First off, the plants aren't commanding water. Secondly, moisture lasts so much longer. So unless you go through, unless it heats up, we just don't water again unless it gets warm, but we get occasional snow and ice. So you really have to gauge the soil. If it gets dry, obviously you need to water. And how you do that would be up to you. And we prepare our beds with dry organic fertilizer. That is our go-to, and that's what we do. You don't do any fertilizing during the winter. I mean, they're not really growing. If you put it in the soil when you plant it, that fertilizer will be active while the temperatures, are warm. But once it gets cold, everything just kind of stops in a hold, and it'll start working again in spring. But we love doing soil drenches and fertilizer through the irrigation once they start growing in spring. All right, I'm just looking for a question. It's almost time for us to get off here. Can you run over the temperature to keep cool flowers during germination, after germination, and when they can be moved? Our grow room, this time of the year, the air conditioner is on in here. The door is left open when we starting cool flowers. That creates about a 65 to 70 degree air temperature. Then they're on a seedling heat mat. I don't use my germination chamber with cool flowers. The germination chamber has to be heated up too much. And we just found they do really, really well at the cooler air temperature, even though it's still hot as blazes outside. Because we're air conditioned, we can create those conditions. We use the wide weave burlap on top of the soil blocks to allow moisture to be trapped, but air to still get in there so you don't get dampening off. And they go under grow lights in there. And then we move them outside as we need to make room underneath the grow lights for the new seedlings coming along. So 65 to 70, cool air, warm soil is the secret. And I also put cookie cooling racks, little racks we put cookies on the seedling heat mat to create a little airspace, because cool flowers need warm soil, but not as hot as our heat mats often get. So that cookie cooling rack just creates a little buffer, but it still provides consistent 24/7 heat, which is what gets them to pop. Do you do anything between the heat mat and the tray of sunflowers seeds, or place the tray directly on top of the heat mat? Good question. No. Well, if you should only be using a sorry, y'all. Seedling heat mat, and they're waterproof. You cannot be using other types of heat mats. So yeah, I put the trays directly on there. All right, gang, it's 7 o'clock, so I'm out of here. I got a dinner date. And do you ever bottom water the sunflowers? I always water from the top, because that helps the seed to soften, to let go. So friends, Remember, go over to the Gardener's Workshop. You need to hook up for, I'll tell you this, as we're heading into an October and November enrollment for our 4 courses, my course, The Basics, Jenny Love's course, Flower Farmer School, the wedding process, but let me just tell you all this. This is an insider. There is so much marketing information in her course and scheduling her crops and what to grow for events. There's so much that applies to people that aren't doing events, but there's a lot of great business information in it. So her course is going on sale. Then in November, Steve and Gretel's Growing Cut Flower Crops in Hoop and Greenhouses. That is an amazing, I mean, you just can't believe how much information. You're not going to find a whole lot of puff with us. I mean, we don't have, we pack our courses with information. And it's kind of more like going to school, not entertainment, I guess. And I say that because I don't want people coming in expecting just entertainment. And it's not that. This is about learning from professionals, practical, hands-on wisdom and experience. So Gretel and Steve's course will blow your mind. I mean, growing Lizzie's and scheduling and what should you grow in a green and hoop house, or what should you grow, what should you give space to. Then Ellen's course, Florist School, growing your business with local sourced flowers. Y'all, she is teaching florists that they have to have our flowers and how to do that. Definitely beneficial for flower farmers. We've had a lot of flower farmers take it. Go to the pages on our website, sign up for the wait list for the classes you're interested in, because we send really great resources out. But that just means you'll get emails from us. That doesn't obligate you to anything. But y'all, we would love to have you in school, and the ground is ripe for harvest in the cut flower world, and it is going to be, I'm telling you, we have more trouble this year getting our supplies as a retailer with a Go Online store than we did last year. Next year, they're telling us it's going to be worse. It's not going to get any better. Buy when you have the opportunity to buy it and you need to grow flowers, and jump in with 2 feet, and we're here to help support you. So friends, till we meet again, ciao.